So students, in continuation in this lecture, we are going to start with the first topic, that is Renaissance. This is most relevant. And as we all know that Renaissance starts from 1485 and goes up to 1660. It is a long period of time. And the term Renaissance means rebirth. And it means rebirth in which language? In French. And derives originally from the Latin renunciatia. And this label was first employed in the 16th century to describe a period in which the recovery, or you can say the renewal of interest in the text from the Greek, ancient Greek and the Roman culture became a very significant focus on the intellectual attention. Generally, Renaissance is nowadays used by the historians and the literary critics and the luminaries to refer a host of different cultural movements. And what are these cultural movements, students? They may be artistic, they may be political, they may be religious or even literary. And all these movements began in the 14th century, Italy, and whose influence radiated out across the Europe in the succeeding centuries. So this in brief is a definition to understand what is Renaissance, students. And you should always remember that in many interviews you have to tell the same thing. And the cultural wave in Europe, जिसका की origin कहाँ था students? जिसका origin था Italy में, did not reach the shores of rather insular kingdom of England until the arrival of Tudors on the throne. In the later stage, we will also go for the Tudor dynasty. And the accession of Henry VII marked an end of, you can say, to our extended period of civil unrest. And what is this civil unrest, students? The War of the Roses. And thus, because of this, it felicitated great cultural dialogue and great cultural intercourse. And the exposure which gave to new ideas, new insights, it had a great impact on the cultural landscape of England. And ये वो समय था, students, which also saw the decline of feudalism. You can note it down somewhere. Decline of feudalism and even the guild system. The decline of the Christian commonwealth and the emergence of the national culture. The new explorations, the new discoveries came into existence. The new love for knowledge and the reformation of the churches. These are all very, very important points, students. And all these movements, what it actually did, it liberated the human mind and gave people the freedom to think, the freedom to act. जब हमें सोचने की शक्ति मिलेगी, जब हमें करने की शक्ति मिलेगी, तब हम जा करके रिलीफ पाएंगे. And then our mind can be fertile and can be nurtured. This age, students, not only in England but in Europe, was great in what it achieved, sublime in what it dreamed, abounding in ripe wisdom and heroic deeds, full of light and of beauty and of life. The crusades of holy wars, though it ended in failure, it proved very, very important and very beneficial, socially also, culturally also. And they ended this long period of stagnation, isolation in Europe, thereby leading to the destruction of old ideas and prepared men to receive the new ideas of Renaissance. कि नए नए ideas लेकर के लोग आए. And apart from what I have just taught to you, students, the most important event which everybody has to know is about the fall of Constantinople. And this fall of Constantinople brought about the downfall of the Christian Roman Empire of the Byzantine Greeks at the hands of Ottoman Turks. OTTOMANTURKS, उनके हाथों जो है डाउनफॉल हुआ था. And the fall of Constantinople shook the entire every throne in Europe. और ये ऐसा इवेंट था जिसने हिस्ट्री के कोर्स को, के रुख को बदल के रख दिया. It was an event that actually changed the course of history in two ways. And what are these two ways? It encouraged exploration, it encouraged discovery, and finally it led to the revival of the classical learning. यहीं से तो ग्रोथ शुरू हुई है, यहीं से तो क्लासिकल लर्निंग शुरू हुई है. एंड द ट्रैवल्स एंड द डिस्कवरीज वेर द रिजल्ट ऑफ इंक्रीज्ड इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी. देखिए कितना सारी चीजें एक दूसरे से प्रोपोर्शनल हैं. एंड द ग्रोथ ऑफ अल्टीमेटली ट्रेड, द ग्रोथ ऑफ कॉमर्स. एंड दिस ग्रोथ ऑफ ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स एक्चुअली केम फ्रॉम विच प्लेस? इट केम बेसिकली फ्रॉम द फार ईस्ट, you can say Europe, following the siege of Constantinople, as there was also a general interest in trade, travel, and several books on travel were written. And these several books of travel which were written, they are known as travelogues. And the classical writers of the ancient Rome, of the ancient Greece, came to be read widely. बहुत ज़्यादा लोग पढ़ने लगे after the mass exodus of scholars from Constantinople to Italy. देखिए इसको हिंदी में समझिए कि जब बहुत सारे स्कॉलर्स कॉन्स्टेंटिनोपल से इटली पहुंचे तो इट बिकेम बेसिकली अ सेंटर ऑफ स्कॉलरशिप. एंड दिस इज व्हाट इज मेंट बाय द क्लासिकल रिवाइवल. इसी को कहते हैं क्लासिकल रिवाइवल स्टूडेंट्स. एंड देयर वाज अ जनरल इमेंसिपेशन ऑफ आर्ट, ऑफ म्यूजिक ड्यूरिंग द रेनेसां फ्रॉम द क्लचेस ऑफ द चर्च, which patronized art if it was symbolic and symbolic of sanctity and moral virtues. जो आर्ट है ना, कला, it became simpler, it became more of realistic, artistic marvels of the great painters जैसे है वो Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci and Titian. These are our great names. These stand unsurpassed in beauty, in grandeur. And music also underwent improvisation with better musical compositions. Music ने भी एक नया आयाम पैदा किया. And the Renaissance architects, इन्होंने क्या किया स्टूडेंट्स? इन्होंने गॉथिक स्टाइल को रिजेक्ट कर दिया, नहीं मानते गॉथिक स्टाइल. एंड रिवाइव द क्लासिकल आर्क. क्लासिकल आर्क को फिर से रिवाइव किया, गॉथिक स्टाइल को खत्म किया. डोम, कॉलम इन्फ्यूज्ड विद अ सेकुलर स्पिरिट एंड विद द डिस्कवरी ऑफ न्यू सी रूट्स एंड डिस्टेंट कॉन्टिनेंट्स एंड द रिवाइवल ऑफ क्लासिक्स, great progress was made in the field of science, which encompassed astronomy, mathematics, physics, medicine, biology, and even social studies. So this was in nutshell about the Renaissance and the effect of Renaissance and about the learning process. Now we will discuss Renaissance in literature. How did Renaissance had a great impact on literature, which is our forte to understand and to teach you. See students, Renaissance was in one sense, एक तरीके से एक अगर उसका पहलू देखें, so it is considered to be as an awakening from a long slumber of dark ages. आपने पीछे पढ़ा होगा कि कितना समय डार्क एज था जहाँ की कोई भी लिटरेचर नहीं हो पाया. And the Renaissance writers engaged tightly with the radically changing cultural landscape which their audiences were experiencing, and they also explored the direction which a developing England might take. अगर हम बात करें 1500 से लेकर के 1660 के बीच में, 1500 to 1600, this English Renaissance produced some of the greatest works of literature the world has ever seen. And in those works you will see the spirit of optimism, the unlimited potential, and the stoic English character all coalesced, all blended to generate the literature of the first order. And at the same time, students, England graduated from an overlooked barbarian nation to a seat of commercial power. एक बारबेरियन नेशन से क्या बन गया? कमर्शियल पावर बन गया, जिसके पास पैसा है, ट्रेड है, सब कुछ है और इन्फ्लुएंस भी है. And this power naturally translated into a literature which was considered to be very bold, sweeping, innovative and trend setting. उसने ट्रेंड बना दिया. Classicism, humanism, individualism became the new buzzwords. पहले कोई जानता नहीं था, अब ये नए buzzwords बन गए. Classicism, humanism, etc. So after this, students, the most important topic which I am going to take, which is considered to be, you can say, the center of your understanding of the history of English literature in the drama section, is the Tudor royal dynasty. Many a times we as professors ask in the interviews that students, please tell me something about Tudor dynasty, and the students are unable to explain this thing. So sit properly and understand that what is this Tudor dynasty, which starts from 1483 and goes up to 1603. And there were so many kings, the divine right of the kings, and how the Tudor dynasty, they diminished, and how they considered themselves to be divine kings, and how the literature could not grow up to that level. And finally, when Elizabeth came into this dynasty, the last, then how England became England. So what happened, students, in this Tudor dynasty after the defeat of Richard III in the Battle of Bosworth? And this Battle of Bosworth was in 1485, the reign of Henry VII, that is 1485 to 1509. This age, this tenure basically brought an end to the bitter and the bloody divisions between the houses of York and houses of Lancaster. आपको पता होगा कि दो हाउसेस होते हैं, हाउसेस ऑफ यॉर्क और हाउसेस ऑफ लैंकेस्टर. इनके बीच में लड़ाई थी. And he was successful in restoring the power, restoring the stability of the English monarchy after the political upheavals of the Civil War, which is known as the War of the Roses. जो मैंने इसके पहले आपसे बताया भी था कि this War of the Roses. So students, this is very important for you to know. And Henry VIII succeeded to the throne after his father's death. And who was his father? Henry VII. And the reign of the second Tudor monarch, that is 1509 to 1547, it basically ushered or saw something different in the political experience, and which was, you can say, characterized by more of pleasure-loving court culture, more of, you can say, foreign policies, and particularly in the later years of this monarch. And when this handsome 17-year-old Henry VIII ascended to the throne, he was very, very, very ambitious to make his mark on the European stage.